Hey, good morning, everybody. This is David McLeod coming to you from Belmont, California, not too far from San Francisco. And as you know, I'm a speaker, facilitator, and life coach. And I'm one of the producers of this show called Life Matters TV. And my partner, Tommy Stoffel, is online. He is back home now after a wonderful vacation. I'm sure he's going to share something about that with us. And so I'm just going to hand it over and say, welcome, Tommy.
Thanks, David. Hi, everybody. Yep, as you can tell, Tommy's back in his level-headed room. And after 2 episodes of being in Hawaii, where hopefully you enjoyed the scenery on the first week of the waves crashing in the background, and then the pleasant, peaceful jungle scene of our lanai, as they call it, our patio, on the second show. So today, no magical mystery tour today. Today we're talking about integrity. And as David so nicely wrote up in the intro that you guys have read, he's talking about how we feel like when we're out of integrity and how we feel it inside and what it feels like to be in integrity. So we're going to delve into this topic today, dig deep into it, understand what integrity is, what it isn't, how it feels to be in it, how it feels to be out of it, and hopefully gain some benefit and shed some weight along the way. So, David, what else do you have in mind for discussing about integrity today?
Well, I think for me, where this all comes from is noticing how I feel. There's two things that I've been thinking about. One is how I feel when I'm out of integrity with somebody else, and that just, that doesn't feel really very good to me. But I've also noticed that when someone else has made a commitment or an agreement with me and they're out of integrity with me and not owning their stuff and not doing anything to clean up that mess, then I have noticed that I feel a lot of, there's anger that comes up for me because I'm feeling like I'm not being respected by the person who made a commitment to me in the first place. And so what I see is integrity is a key element of creating wonderful, powerful, heartful, soulful relationships with one another. If we don't have that with each other, then our relationships are really going to fail. So for me, integrity is a cornerstone, and it's probably one of the most important qualities that any of us can have or can choose to cultivate. So I really want to take it wherever it's going to go with those ideas in mind.
Okay, and also, in the write-up you sent out, you beautifully talked about how when you're out of integrity, you kind of feel lost, like you feel like you're heading in the wrong direction. Mm-hmm. And then when you're in integrity, and I feel this way too, right? When I'm in integrity, I feel like I'm on course. I'm heading in the right direction. Those were kind of your words, and when I read them, I'm like, yep, spot on. And I thought about that, and I was like, so it's almost like integrity is almost like a spiritual indicator, if you will, like whether you're on course or off course. Are you in integrity or out of integrity? And it's one of probably many, but it's definitely a key one in recognizing if what we're doing is going in the right direction for us and for, like you started to get into our friendships, our relationships, and our dealings with other people.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that I've learned about integrity is integrity is critical to mutual trust. When I am in integrity, like especially if I'm in integrity most of the time, then whoever I'm in relationship can trust that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, and I become reliable to that person. And it's not about necessarily agreeing with what the other person is going to do, but just knowing, okay, this is what he believes, this is what he's going to commit to, this is what he's going to do. I can count on that, even if I don't necessarily align with it personally for myself. And I can still be in a powerful relationship with somebody like that as long as I know that I can count on that person to have his heart, his thoughts, his words, his actions, and his feelings in alignment. Now, as I just said that, I realized that, to me, is a definition of integrity. To me, it's a state of being in which my thoughts, my words, my actions, and my feelings are all kind of lined up. When they're lined up, they're all pointing in the same direction. When anything is off, even if only one thing is off like that, I notice it in my body, and that's when I can start to begin to recognize that I may not be fully in integrity with who I really am, or with what my purpose is in life, or what my intention is, and that sort of thing. So I wanted to just throw that out there as a possible definition for people to use.
Yeah, and I love it, man. That's brilliant. Because it goes along with what we've been saying and saying and saying again is how do you feel about something? How you know, trusting the heart, trusting that intuition again, and that's your guidance system. So
Yeah.
in the same way, this is part of our guidance system. Having
Right.
that integrity so we can clearly feel and sense when things are going right and when things maybe aren't going so well.
Yeah.
So I wanna also, you know, we're kind of hedging on two different things here. Our integrity and other people's integrity. And I think it's gonna, you know, let's focus a little bit first on our integrity and understand what that is. And then let's talk a little bit about other people's expectations, or expectations of other people, you know, having integrity as well. Because let's just kind of keep that clear for a second. And you put out a brilliant definition of what you think integrity is, and it was a lovely description. And maybe some other things just to kind of put some words around it. To me, integrity has to do with the obvious things of you know, being truthful. And I'll say truth, and I'll say honesty, and I'll make it a little distinction there in a minute. But also establishing trust, right? It evolves into trust. I think there's also an element of well, we say truth and honesty. There's like transparency is a word that, you know, a lot of people are using these days, and there's an element of responsibility in there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're going to be responsible, like you said, for doing what we say we're going to do.
Right.
And then I did write some notes this week, and I said, honesty, what's honesty? And honesty is like kind of maybe telling others the truth. And maybe integrity is also telling myself the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because sometimes, you know, do we not always tell ourselves the truth about things, about ourselves, about our behavior, about our situations? So I think we can be out of integrity with others, but we can also be out of integrity or in integrity with ourselves.
Right. Yeah. And what I have thought about as you were thinking here is, well, integrity is really about, as I said, it's about keeping those four things in alignment. And one of the ways that we can tell whether we're in integrity or not is just to look at whatever agreements we've made, whether we've made those agreements just with ourselves or whether we've made those agreements with somebody else. If I make an agreement with you, for example, to do something, and then I fail to do it for whatever reason, then I'm clearly out of integrity with that agreement and with you. Now the question is, what do I do about that? And that's really what I think the issue is about. But a secondary part of it is, what was it that brought me out of integrity with you? Maybe the reason I got out of integrity is because I only said yes because I want you to like me. Maybe I'm caught up in that whole approvalitis thing, and I'm worried about, if I say no to you, are you going to dislike me? Are you going to disown me as a friend? You know? And I think this is where the honesty piece comes in, because if I'm going to be honest with you, then I could, and you asked me to do something, I could say, you know, Tommy, that doesn't really align with me. That doesn't feel something that's in alignment with my purpose in life. So I'm not going to agree to do that. At least now you've got an honesty, and you may not like my answer, but at least now you've got some truth that came from me.
Yeah, you're spot on, man, and you're getting down into the depths of it here too. It's that yeah, the thought will come back to me. But you said it earlier about how it feels, and oh, the ability to say no, right? That we're all caught up in wanting to please, or wanting to have approval, or wanting to we want to do things, we want to help, we naturally want to do things, and life happens, and then maybe we can't do the things we say, or we can't keep a promise, or something happens. What you're saying is to be more aware of the situation when you're making that commitment. When you're in a place of making a commitment to somebody, really go and take a quick snapshot and feel how you're feeling inside about it, and say, really, am I going to be able to do this? With all the other stuff on my plate, do I have the bandwidth or the wherewithal or the inspiration or the desire to really do what I'm saying I'm going to do?
Yeah.
And that's key. And I think in that sense too, it's like you said, it's okay to say no sometimes. I
Hmm.
think there's courage and there's power and there's true compassion in sometimes saying, you know what, I'm just not going to be able to get to that this week. I'm
Right.
sorry. You know, let's work out another arrangement. Maybe it's. But I'm a project manager, right? So I'm always negotiating schedules and tasks and things like that. So I'm always renegotiating. If we say we're going to do something, stuff happens, right? And maybe you can't keep the plan. So you renegotiate the plan and say, you know what, I'm not going to get it done tomorrow. I'll get it done the day after, or whatever. But to stay in integrity, so it doesn't mean you have to meet every freaking deadline you set. But at least you have to communicate with the other person that you made this contract with, and renegotiate or explain to them, you know, what's going on and why maybe you can't meet that commitment.
Yeah,
So
you brought up a great word there, renegotiation. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit later. Uh, I think we're off to a great start here, as always. And I think integrity is, as I said, it's one of those cornerstone qualities. I think it's something that all of us admire in other people when we see it, and all of us really love to cultivate that within ourselves. I also believe that when we are in integrity, as we've already said, it feels really good. It's like, wow, I'm just on the path. I am moving in the right direction. Everything feels like very clear and directed and purposeful and so forth. And when I'm out of integrity, man, I'm just like totally confused. I'm thinking like, where am I going? What exactly am I supposed to be doing here? And that's just been my experience. And I don't know if that's true for other people, but I think that there's probably some commonality amongst people in that regard. So, how about you? I mean, do you experience that yourself?
yeah, and you're again, you just bring up the great points of again how it feels, right? How it feels, because it probably feels different to different people. We all experience, like we're talking about being out of integrity, we're kind of off the path, and it's important to be able to recognize um, those not so helpful conditions or situations or head noise or behaviors, and different people sense them different ways. So I was actually just teaching a class the other night and talking to people, and I said, how do you feel when you're when we call the delusions? The delusions are coming up. The monkey mind, the crazy head is steering in the wrong direction. How does it feel? Because for some people, it's like somebody's like, oh well, I get a lot of tension in my shoulders. Like, okay, well that's your indicator. That's an indicator that you're off course, that you're maybe in this case stepping out of integrity. Maybe some people said that I got a bad feeling in my stomach, or my brow gets all furrowed, or somebody says my story starts going off in my head.
Hmm.
So it's important for people to kind of feel for themselves what it feels like inside yourself
Yeah.
when you're out of something, in this case out of integrity, because that's when you want to recognize it, and that's when you want to also, you with some practice and some practice and some practice, you can get to a place where you can, before you get into a commitment you can't keep, you say, you know what, I'm not going to commit to that right now.
Right. Yeah, and there's another point that, well, you talked about it's okay to say no. I think that more important than that, or maybe not more important, but just as important, is when I hear a no, a clear no from somebody, and I know that it's coming from a place of authenticity and truth and honesty, then it's easier for me to trust a yes that I get from the same person further down the road, and know that, okay, they've said yes because they've thought about it. They're being consistent. They're not just saying yes to please me anymore, and that feels a lot better to me as a receiver of the yes or the no.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, let's let's talk for a minute about, to kind of, this word integrity, and to kind of keep putting some definition around it or something. Um, I think there are some habits that I have had in the past and I still work on, that relate to when I'm out of integrity. So things like lying.
Hmm. Hmm.
Even people say, "Oh, a small white lie," and we'll come back to lies in a moment. But procrastination, right? When you said it earlier, when you commit to something that really you're not in tune with, or really maybe can't deliver on, then you tend to procrastinate on it, and it gets, it kind of snowballs even worse. But procrastination to me is a habit that's based in non-integrity, and a lot of us procrastinate. So I'm not throwing stones at the glass house. I have my own procrastination issues that I always deal with. Judgment, when we, judging others too. I find that as a sense of when, my integrity is out of balance and I start kind of comparing and judging again, which we talk to people about. And what else? Downright deceit. You talk about lying, but we can also, the conscious part of that, sometimes we can be deceiving. Mm-hmm. And and then the ultimate one, which we're kind of like, there's the button that gets pushed, is unreliability, right? Whether we're being unreliable or somebody else is being unreliable. So those are habits that I think come out of the state of being out of integrity. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of those hit any chords, or if you have any others to add in, just to kind of help make it real for what this means and what it causes in our life.
Absolutely, I can relate to all of them. If I were to say I'd never lied, I'd be lying. Who hasn't? I think we're human beings. This is what we do. We don't necessarily lie to be malicious. We lie for a variety of different reasons, and sometimes it's just about maybe recognizing that if we tell the truth, we're going to hurt somebody's feelings, and so we decide, I'd rather not hurt someone's feelings. I'll just kind of find a way around it and hope that it never comes up again. I mean, we all do that sort of thing, and so the motivation behind it may well be in alignment with our purpose. And yet, there's still a way in which the monkey mind got in the way and said, well, if you really want to do this part of your purpose, then I think you should lie about that. So I think there's still fear involved, and that's what motivates the lying in the first place. Same thing with deceit. Procrastination is something that I can definitely relate to. It isn't always related to having made an agreement that I'm not fully in alignment with. It's usually more that I have got too much stuff on my plate and I end up pushing stuff off that maybe doesn't have quite as high a priority as something else that I imagine is very important in my life. So that, I can relate to that. Judgment? Are you kidding? Judging. I'm always judging, whether I'm in integrity or not. It's part of what I do. I mean, I'm a human being, and just when I'm looking at somebody, I'm making judgments, not necessarily on purpose and not trying to hurt anybody, but I'll make a judgment and say, oh, I really like the look of that person, or I'm attracted to that person. There's something attractive about that person. That's a judgment. I don't know what it is. It's just I'm noticing stuff going on inside me. So yeah, all of that happens for me all the time. So
yeah, it does. And you keep saying it's just a part of being human. It's just a part of being human. I'm going to put a little bit of a challenge out there to you and to myself. I always challenge myself on this. Is that I don't always like being a human in that respect. There are elements of what I call the human race that I'm trying to shed. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to shed those, the lying. Miguel Ruiz wrote a wonderful book called The Four Agreements, and one of his agreements is speak the truth. And ever since I read that book, I have done my damnedest to speak the truth. Mm-hmm. And I feel it when I don't. I feel a little ping when something slips out, and to get around that too, I don't lie, but I'll avoid a topic if I have to get around it. I'll avoid something in order to hurt, not hurt somebody's feelings, like you said. Mm-hmm. But I do my best to speak truth, and so yeah, it's part of our human conditioning. It's part of our human, what Miguel Ruiz also calls our domestication, but it's not really our core. Our core is truth. Our core is integrity. Our core is honesty and openness and that loving energy that we talk about. And all this other stuff that kind of blocks it and piles on it is part of the human condition. It's part of the human disease. And we have the ability to work on that and to clear away the mud and the muck and the blocks. So just throwing that out there again to myself. I challenge myself with that every day, trying to overcome the human conditions.
Yeah, I've read Don Miguel Ruiz's book, and actually several of his books. And I'm sure you and I have probably, if we examine each other's libraries, we'll find a lot of common stuff there. And yes, I agree that his book really was all about integrity and being the best that you can possibly be as a human being.
Yeah.
I want to admire you first off for taking on the commitment to always tell the truth. And by the way, I think this is another great topic, the whole concept of truth. We could have probably a 2-hour conversation about that, or maybe even longer, because truth is definitely something that, some people believe in an absolute truth, some people believe that there's only relative truth, and then there's all the people in between, And so we could go off on a complete detour around that subject. But what I want to do is I want to stay on this for a moment and talk a little bit about how do we get back into integrity. When we're out of integrity, we recognize that either our thoughts, our words, our actions, or our feelings, or some combination of those aren't in alignment necessarily, and we're feeling that weird sense of not knowing where we're going, being a little bit off our chosen path, and that sort of thing. And so, how do we get back? How do we get back? That's the first thing. And I'm going to propose, I have a 5-step process that I call the 5 R's of recovering and reestablishing my integrity. And they are: first, reflect; regroup; reconnect; recalibrate; and recommit. Those are the 5 R's. Now, I'd like to just go through each of those in a little bit of detail, but I first wanted to just see if you had anything to offer at this point.
No, but I'm loving it. I love steps. I love 5-step processes. I love R's. After each one, though, just give me an opportunity to kind of give some feedback on each as you go through it.
Sure. All right. So the first step really is reflection, and this is where, as Tommy and I have been saying, pretty much every episode, it's all about going within. It's all about looking within. And so if I'm out of integrity, the question that I can ask myself without judging myself is, how is it that I ended up making this agreement in the first place? Is this an agreement that I really feel fully in alignment with? Is this a commitment that I want to stick to? And just notice what comes up. This is a private reflection. This is not something I necessarily do with somebody else, although it might be helpful actually to do it with somebody, but it's an opportunity for me just to look inside and to see what am I really feeling, what's really going on here for me as I look at this issue.
Yeah, another word that comes up is we talked about is to recognize it, right? We have to recognize it first. So how do you feel? That's the recognition, and that brings that into our awareness. So and then reflecting on it is what we have been talking about, of like kind of doing this root cause analysis, kind of looking for the root of where this problem stemmed from in the first place. Right. So yeah, you're right on. So I love it. Reflect. Yeah.
And so the second step really is about, once you've done some reflection and you kind of got connection back to yourself, the second step is about regrouping. So regrouping is, the way I look at this is, I have the opportunity now to look at, how did I get out of integrity? How did I get out of integrity, either if I was making an agreement with another person, how did I get out of integrity with that person? And so it's an opportunity for me to look at the situation, take a step back from my life and just look at it from a dispassionate observer and pretend like I'm just looking at all the things that happen, and then I can just say to myself, oh yeah, I was maybe caught up in a little shadow belief or something, and I was thinking that if I did this, I would be able to get, maybe I want to get something from you, and I was doing it in order to get something from you, rather than just honestly saying, yes, I would do it. There might be other things that were involved. Now, the beauty of this process, if I want to hold myself accountable, if I do it with the other person and share that, the level of depth of connection that I create with that person is pretty amazing. However, this is all about personal ownership. It's not about trying to put anything on the other person at all. I want to make sure that that's really clear up front.
Yeah, so regrouping gives you the opportunity to really analyze where it came from, and to recognize that you're off path, and to see how to get back on, to see, you know, where the on ramp back is again.
Yeah.
So so I like that. Yeah, nice.
Right. And so, as we also talked about, as we were discussing some of the effects of being out of integrity, I talked about having this experience of feeling lost, like I'm really not on my path. And one of the ways, so step 3 is really about reconnecting, and that's reconnecting to my true path, reconnecting to my soul, reconnecting to my purpose. And I may have alluded to these 4 archetypes before, but I like to think of the archetypal energies of the lover, the warrior, the magician, and the sovereign. These are 4 energies that exist within all of us. And if I can kind of reconnect to all of those and bring my lover energy, the clarity of my warrior energy, the transformative power of my magician energy, and then the big vision of my sovereign, if I can bring all those back together and reconnect to those, then I can begin the process of healing whatever damage I may have created by being out of integrity in the first place. So that's the reconnect process.
Yeah, and I love it. And back to our original, you know, your write-up about this, getting off path, and now we're back on path, right? We've taken the entrance ramp back on, and now we're back on path. We're reconnected with our integrity, with our authenticity, with our genuine self again.
Right.
I love it. What's number 4?
Number 4 is recalibrate. And what that's all about is, now that I've had a chance to do the reflection piece, the regrouping piece, and the reconnect piece, now I can look at what it was I was committing to in a different light. And I can say, is this a commitment I truly want to make? Is it in alignment with my heart? And if it is, then I can recommit. I can recommit. I can just simply step into it and say, yeah, I'm definitely on board with this. This is definitely in alignment with who I am, and recommit to that agreement, or maybe make some modifications to it or whatever. This is the renegotiation piece that you were talking about. But on the other hand, if it really doesn't feel truthful and honest and in alignment with my purpose, now's my chance to own that and simply say, you know, this isn't working for me. I stepped into this commitment for all the wrong reasons. I'm now choosing to step back because it's not in alignment with my truth. If I do that in a good way and in an honest way and a compassionate way with whoever I'm in integrity with, believe me, it just creates deeper connection.
Yeah, it can also get sticky too, depending on what kind of relationship you're in and what you're maybe trying to shift and get out of. But I love the thing, and and renegotiating, right? Kind of saying, you know what? When I made this initial agreement, or I came into this situation, maybe I didn't have all the information that I have now.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't. Maybe other stuff has happened in my life since then, since I started, and I can no longer meet my obligations. And so it's important, you know, just be honest with yourself, and like you said, to be honest with the other party in that process as well. It's gonna, you know, it feels scary to some, depending on what you're thinking about right now, but it's the right way to go. And it's the right way to approach renegotiating or reestablishing your integrity.
Yep. So, having gone through those 4 steps, then the final step is basically to recommit. And recommit means either I'm going to step fully into the agreement as it was originally put together, or I'm going to finalize a new agreement, and that will be what I commit to. But I'll be doing it from a place of consciousness and authenticity rather than from a place of unconsciousness and shadow. And that makes a huge difference right there. Just doing that part alone, just going through all these steps, essentially I have reestablished my own integrity with myself and with the person I'm in agreement with.
Yeah, that's brilliant, David. Thanks for sharing that with me personally, and I'm sure everyone watching is going to enjoy that too. So yeah, that was really nice.
Oh, you're welcome.
So I think we're just about, if I'm looking at the clock, we've got under a minute left. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening next week?
Yeah, I've been trying to find people to be guests on our show, and I found this. I have a good friend. His name is Chris Kyle. He's with the Mankind Project, and he is been kind of heading up a project called, I think it's called the Power of Purpose Summit. And it's pretty amazing. So he's agreed to come on our show next week and talk about purpose, and in particular, how we get blockages to our purpose, which I find interesting because that's exactly what we've been talking about today. So
I love it, man. And purpose is a big part of who we are, and it underpins everything we've been talking about. Having a purpose, being able to live it in integrity and with full power. I'm really looking forward to talking to Chris next week. Thanks for setting that up.
Okay, man. Well, goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a great week.
Bye, everybody.